Hey there, this screencast is a reading of the first 31 lines of Christina Rossetti's Goblin Market. And you'll see that my face is here in the corner for this recording because I want you to pay attention to a couple of specific things as I read this aloud. So, number one, I want you to listen and think about how what you're hearing connects with what you're seeing on the page here. But I also want you to look at how the language makes my mouth move, or any kind of facial expressions that just pronouncing the words makes me make. And I know that can sound kind of weird, but poetry, when spoken aloud, can actually kind of manipulate your body in an interesting way, and it can make you smile or frown or make silly faces. So vowel sounds like the long E, ah, creates a smile. And vowel sounds like the long O create this like pursed lip face, like an expression of surprise or maybe even like a kissy face. So whether you've ever thought about it or not, anytime you're reading something out loud, you end up making these different faces. And so it's a weird way that literature can kind of do something to your body. And it's worth thinking that through because if, for instance, we are reading a poem like Goblin Market that's very much about the senses and like tasting things and smelling things, then it's worth thinking about how your own body as a reader of that text interacts with that content. So, particularly as we're thinking about this poem that's very much about eating and tasting and like using your mouth, I want you to pay attention to what my mouth is doing as I'm reading these. So, in order to do that, you'll probably need to watch this screencast twice, or at least my reading of it twice, because cognitive theory tells us that our working memory can only handle visual and auditory processes at the same time, not visual and visual. So it would be hard for you to process the language that I'm using, so the written text here, and also look at my mouth, right? Because that's two different things to look at. So I would suggest doing one read through where you're looking at the written language and one where you are looking at my mouth and listening to the words. Anyway, so I will leave that up to you, and I'm going to go ahead and read the first 31 lines of Goblin Market, and this is from the Clemson Library's edition that you can find on our reading list. Okay, are you ready? Okay, Goblin Market. Morning and evening, maids heard the goblins cry, "Come buy our orchard fruits, come buy, come buy." Apples and quinces, lemons and oranges, plump unpecked cherries, melons and raspberries, bloom-down-cheeked peaches, swart-headed mulberries, wild free-born cranberries, crab-apples, dewberries, pineapples, blackberries, apricots, strawberries, all ripe together in summer weather. Morns that pass by, fair eves that fly, come buy, come buy. Our grapes fresh from the vine, pomegranates full and fine, dates and sharp bolaces, rare pears and greengages, damsons and bilberries, taste them and try. Currants and gooseberries, bright fire like barberries, figs to fill your mouth, citrons from the south, sweet to tongue and sound to eye, come buy, come buy. Okay, so those were our first 31 lines. As I said, I want you to think about how does the sound, so what it sounds like, interact with the content or the meaning of the words that you are hearing and seeing. And then I also want you to think about how me reading those words aloud did something to my mouth and my facial expressions, anything that it made me mimic, or any moments where it may be connected to acts of eating or anything else that might be using the senses. And so thinking about what were those words or phrases where you did notice my mouth doing something strange, or you did notice me making some kind of facial expression that seems relevant to the content in some way. So I'm going to post this on Yellow Dig, and you'll be able to comment below. Thanks.